And so we come to one of Hamlet's final conversations about the nature of death here with Horatio. After he's been summoned to this duel, Horatio says, "Hey, this you might lose. This duel might not work out for you." And Hamlet says that he senses some kind of foreboding. There's something about this that rings false to him. Of course, you'll recall that this whole play, Hamlet has kind of been one step ahead of his conspirators. He sniffed out the rats. We'll see by the end of the play that he has turned around Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. He's already said he found their letter. He saw that it meant that he was going to die. He rewrote the letter to make it that Rosencrantz and Guildenstern were to be killed instead. And in this way, as he said earlier, he would dig below their minds and blow them to the moon. And he's done this with all of his enemies so far, with the exception of Claudius. So there's a heaviness on him here, a suggestion perhaps that he's aware that the pages are, there's not a lot of pages left. The reader knows that this is going to end soon, and Hamlet seems to know that as well. And so he says now, there is a special providence in the fall of a sparrow. If it be now, it probably here referring to his death, 'tis not to come. If it be not to come, it will be now. If it be not now, yet it will come. The readiness is all. Since no man of aught he leaves knows what is it to leave betimes, let be. So there's a couple different ways I think we could look at this, and I think there are more interpretations. I'm just providing three. The first might be for Hamlet a kind of return to his Judeo-Christian roots. He references here the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 10, verses 29 to 31, where Jesus says, "Are not two sparrows sold for a penny? Yet not one of them will fall to the ground outside your Father's care. And even the very hairs of your head are all numbered, so don't be afraid. You are worth more than many sparrows." This suggests the divine providence of a God who is concerned with sparrows who are sold for a penny, two of them for a penny, half a penny. And so therefore, how much more would this heavenly Father care for people? The hairs of your head are numbered. There's a sense here of a divine agency at work. Hamlet has previously referenced this as well to say that there's something seems kind of providential, divinely so, about how he was able to escape this trip to England and head back to Denmark. And so his special providence in the fall of a sparrow that he's mentioned seems to be connected here pretty, not even really obliquely, but pretty on the nose with this Christian vision of providence. But then he moves into a section that you could look at and say, well, that kind of sounds like fatalism, like just whatever happens is what happens. When he says, if it's not now, it's later. If it's later, it's now. If it's to come, then it's to come. And who knows? It is what it is a kind of resignation as he heads to death. Maybe you'll remember Macbeth saying, "Come what come may, time and the hour runs through the roughest day," which is his kind of ascribing himself to fate as well, to say, well, what's going to happen is what's going to happen, and I'm just along for this kind of fatalistic ride. A third way of looking at this, when Hamlet says the readiness is all, seems to instead kind of line us up for future conversations that we'll have about existentialism, in which Hamlet, as a protagonist, is faced with a choice. And his choice is to recognize that death is around the corner from him. And what's his response to it going to be? Earlier in this little monologue, he says we defy augury. Augury is superstition or omens based on birds. So in the Roman Empire especially, there's all kinds of stories about like an eagle lands on the bust of a particular previous Roman emperor. And so the son of that emperor believes now that he himself will receive divine favor. Or there's a lot of mythological stories about birds fighting above the protagonist, which is a bad sign or a good sign or the sign of providence and all these kinds of things. And Hamlet says, we're past that. We don't believe that, which before he launches into this conversation about sparrows. But a little earlier in the play, he says, no, there's nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. And maybe Hamlet in this part is saying, this is me choosing how to think about death. Maybe he's saying, look, this whole play I've been like, there's stuff I don't know. There's things outside of my control. But now I'm just going to choose. And I'm going to choose to be ready. That's all it is. All it is thinking. All it is making a choice. And so rather than try to say, well, is this a Christian thought? Is this a fatalistic thought? Is this an existential thought? Hamlet's like, this is my thought. And my thought is, I'm ready. And that's all it needs. That's all it requires. It just requires a readiness. Okay, and so this massive conclusion in which everybody dies except for Horatio and Fortinbras, who are alive to tell the tale. But by the conclusion of this play, Hamlet is dead, Gertrude is dead, Claudius is dead, Polonius is dead, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead, Laertes is dead, Ophelia is dead, and a good question to consider is Hamlet responsible for all of this death? Here at the conclusion of the play, and I'll give you a second to answer.